Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I'm so happy you're here. My name is Hannah and on this channel I post a lot of anti-MLM content. I'll link a playlist here and down below. This is my big anti-MLM playlist, but I also have smaller playlists broken down based on the topic of the video. So if you're all about these horror stories video, there's its own dedicated playlist for that. If you like the top fails, there's a playlist for that. Zoom calls or deep dives into different MLM companies, there's playlists for those as well. So if any of that kind of content does sound interesting to you, I would love it if you would consider subscribing, liking this video, leaving a comment. All those things really help to support my channel, and I appreciate you so much for doing that. For today, I have MLM Horror Stories number 33. In these videos, I pick out a few of the stories that have been sent to me. I read them and react to them for a video, and if you have your own story that you would like to send in, the instructions for how to do that are in the description box below. Enough of all the intro stuff, let's read some stories. This story says, "Hi Hannah, I've been recently binging your content lately and I love what you do. I've not had too many experiences with MLMs. However, after watching your content, there is something that jumps out to me when I look back at it. Your channel helped me to recognize it." I get told that a lot. These videos oftentimes trigger memories that people either forgot about or they didn't know that it was an MLM at the time, and I think that is so fascinating. Last summer, my fiance and I got engaged. I was so excited and began planning immediately. There was a wedding expo being held in my area about a month after my engagement. I was antsy to go and I took my mom with me since my fiance had to work that day. The expo was so fun and I got a lot of helpful information from legit wedding vendors and professionals. However, there were more than a few MLM companies at this expo as well. Specific ones I remember were Beachbody, Pure Romance, and Mary Kay. The Mary Kay rep at this expo still emails and texts me despite it being almost a year later and not answering any of her messages after politely declining a party the first time. But this story is not about her. I cannot remember the name of this company, but the experience I had with them had MLM scam written all over it. And I'm hoping that sharing this story will help to identify the company as well. Okay, everyone be on alert, listen for the clues. If anyone can identify this company, leave it in the comments. Towards the end of the expo, my mom and I were circling the booth for a final time when a lady greeted us. We had not stopped at this booth earlier because it didn't interest me. There were champagne glasses, charger plates, and other dishes specific to wedding setup, but there were also everyday dishes like pots and pans too. "Did you win any drawings today?" the lady asked me. I told her that I didn't, not hiding my disappointment either. She convinced me to sign up for their drawing. They were giving away a pair of genuine crystal champagne flutes as well as a free 2-night hotel stay. All I had to do was enter in my information. I gave her what she asked for and started a conversation with her. She was so charismatic and kind and funny, and after I left the expo, I got a text message saying that I had won the drawing. I was so excited. The champagne flutes were one less thing I needed to purchase for my wedding, and the hotel stay would go towards our honeymoon since our budget was limited. The text went on to say that to receive my flutes and hotel vouchers, that my fiance and I were invited to a dinner that they would prepare for us. Skip to the night of the dinner. It was held at a small event room of a chain hotel. I won't say which one. This didn't bother me since the wedding expo was held at an event center. Granted, it was at a much nicer hotel, but I wasn't going to judge. When we arrived, a booth was set up at the front with countless different household kitchen items, mostly pots and pans. There were also a few burners set up on the table. There were a few sets of chairs facing the booth in rows with a handful of other couples already there. I was really confused. I didn't think that there were other people that won this giveaway. With us included, it made 7 couples. And the room wasn't set up like we were gonna have dinner, more like to watch a presentation. I was a little put off by being misled, but I did want the free hotel vouchers and the champagne flutes, so we stayed. The same lady I met at the expo greeted us, and she was just as charismatic as she was the previous week. Then she gets into her pitch. Based off of what I saw at the expo, I assumed that this was a rental company for wedding dishes, like charger plates, cake stands, etc. Instead, she is selling induction-style pots and pan sets. I don't remember much about the product, but they were stainless steel pots and pans that you could stack on top of one another as they cooked. So the steam and the heat from the lower pot would cook the one on top. And this style of pan didn't require any oil or butter. It gave me very infomercial vibes for what I thought looked like regular pots and pans, to be honest. The best part, our dinner. This woman takes out a Tupperware container of raw chicken that was sitting in a bag on the ground next to her. I'm not sure if there were any ice packs in the bag. Absolutely not. That's where I tap out. I have a fear of food poisoning, a fear of mishandled food, a fear of getting sick. I would be out the door. I swear to God, I would not touch that chicken. That is so gross to me. I'm thoroughly disgusted right now. There were 2 chicken breasts in that container. She cooked that with no butter, no oil, no seasoning, and she paired it with 2 carrots and an onion to serve to 7 couples. You're kidding. You're kidding. 2 chicken breasts, an onion, and a couple carrots. Oh God, no. She served it up on paper plates for each couple to share 1 plate. Mind you, there was no table in front of us to eat off of, so my fiance and I are just awkwardly holding this flimsy plate between us with a bite of chicken and 2 slices of a carrot. Oh my God, this is so awful. I'm laughing because I'm cringing so hard. Isn't this style of cooking just so much more delicious and healthier? Okay. She starts to end her pitch by saying how, quote, as soon to be newlyweds, we need to start looking at our future. And that includes what dishware we are going to use. I don't remember the exact price, but this woman was pitching this room full of young adults. Young adults with financial obligations like a wedding and a home and everything else that comes with being engaged, and a pot and pan set that cost over $2,000. I don't know about you, but as a young adult starting out life and purchasing my first house, I cannot afford a pot and pan set priced over $2,000. My current one was under $300, and I assure you it works just fine. There was an option of payment plans and a select customer price, but I don't recall how you applied for that offer. Honestly, after seeing the dinner that was provided, I was only focusing on how to get out of there as quickly as I could, which I did. As soon as she finished her speech, my fiance and I were the first to grab our flutes and go. Other couples were standing around awkwardly. Nobody wanted to be rude by leaving too early without buying anything, but I saw them all scuttle out the same way we did with their champagne glasses in their hands. My fiance and I went to Steak and Shake next door for an actual dinner, finding out that the free 2-night hotel stay was only available after you spent a certain amount of money at the hotel, specifically the chain hotel the event was hosted in, and the vouchers expired before our wedding day anyways. The website associated with the brochure was made at least sometime before 2005 without a phone number or any helpful information. I was super bummed about how the night went, but in the end those champagne flutes were pretty nice whether they are genuine crystal or not, and we actually do plan to use them in our wedding, which is December 1st, 2022. That's so exciting, coming up. I feel bad for the lady that pitched us. She seemed so genuinely nice. It makes me wonder how in the world she got sucked into selling overpriced pots and pans to soon-to-be newlyweds and cooking them chicken from Tupperware containers. I don't think she got a single sale from any of the couples there that night. Again, I cannot remember the name of this company. It wasn't Pampered Chef. It was a company I had never heard of. I know this is a little different from some of the other stories shared here, but the misleading nature of this entire experience, as well as preying on vulnerable young couples, just never sat right with me. Thank you for letting me share my story. If you are reading this, remember that you are doing so much good in this world. Thank you. Wow. And I love a good mystery because I'm stumped. I don't know what this company could be. I'm assuming it's probably something I've never heard of either. However, I did find a website that claims to be a comprehensive list of all the MLMs there ever was, and they categorize them based on the type of product they sell. And so here's everything under the kitchen supplies bullet. Maybe it was one of these companies, I don't know. I'm basically only familiar with Cutco and Pampered Chef. I have not looked into any of these other ones, but if there's someone out there who knows, an MLM company sells pots and pans, they stack on top of each other, maybe one of them steams the other kind of situation, $2,000 price range. If you know the name of the company, leave it in the comments below so we can crack the case. And this whole story really strikes me like a Mary Kay story where they say, oh, you won a free facial or you won a free makeover or something like that, and they get you to go to this other location to receive this service, which is never actually what you thought you were gonna get. Grade A MLM tactic. I am not surprised whatsoever that you experience something like this, especially at a wedding expo. But there's so many MLMs out there. You were able to recognize the obvious ones, right? Beachbody, Mary Kay. But then there's these other ones that really fly under the radar and we don't know about them as much. And those are the ones that get you. So thank you for sending in this story. I hope you have the most amazing wedding. I'm so happy for you. Congratulations. And come back in a few days and check out the comments and see if someone has figured out what company this is. This story says, hi Hannah, my name is is Luna, and I really enjoy watching your videos while getting ready or crocheting. That's fun. I would like to share my most traumatic MLM horror story with you, as I'm from a small town and they are everywhere. Some background. All my life I was very overweight. My nickname as a child was Little Meatball, and as I grew older, I was body shamed by my classmates and family. My mother was the one who scolded me the most for being overweight. My sister was always a size 0 or 00, and my brother was the captain of the soccer team, so I was the obvious fatter child. People would even think I was adopted. I ended up having PCOS and thyroid issues, so it was always difficult to lose the weight even when I was active, and I love food. My mom would also insist on me wearing a type of corset to hide my rolls, especially when going to weddings or quinceañeras, but it ended up being an everyday thing. Oh, my heart breaks for you. I'm really sorry you had to go through that. When I was in 5th grade going into 6th grade, a door-to-door salesman came to the door, and as a young child, I wasn't very tuned into their conversation, but I do remember he had a nice suit and gave a presentation on health and nutrition that lasted for what felt like forever. On the presentation, there was a woman who was 300 pounds that went down to 104 pounds in only 6 months. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but that's what the picture looked like. He then took my parents to the kitchen and made us all smoothies and had us use a device that looked like a game controller to check how healthy we were. After seeing that I was, quote, severely unhealthy, normal doctors weren't concerned with my weight, my mother was scared for my health. My mother was so scared that she basically bought everything Herbalife sold for the whole family. Since he was a nutritionist, whatever he said was the best for us, we would buy. This marked my first ever diet that lasted all of middle school. My food consisted of a protein drink for breakfast, only lettuce for lunch, and a salad for dinner. I also had to drink 2 gallons of water a day mixed with a cap full of mango aloe concentrate they sold, and a bunch of pills. We also worked out for an hour every day. This made me rapidly lose weight, but I always craved food and was resenting my family for not letting me have a single Ritz cracker. I was also starting to be treated better by everyone around me, and this led me to become even more resentful because I felt like I was the same person, just with less fat. And this brings up such an important point as to why we should not be praising the weight loss of others, just in general, because I'm not a professional by any means, but I can pretty confidently tell you that protein shakes, lettuce, and supplements is not sufficient for a middle schooler to be consuming. Kids' bodies are going through all kinds of crazy changes during that time that need to be supported, not suppressed with diets and pills. And it breaks my heart to hear you say that you're the same person, you just have a different body composition, and because of that, people seem to be praising you for it and treating you better because of it. And that's one super messed up issue in itself, but on top of that, that weight wasn't even lost in a healthy way. You are being praised and rewarded for basically starving yourself during the most pivotal developmental milestones in an adolescent's life, and I can only imagine the emotional and physical effects that has had on you over time. A few months after I started, the Herbalife man came back to check our body fat, which was that machine that looked like a game controller. He said that I improved a lot, but the ultimate goal was to get it under 10%. 10% body fat? That cannot be healthy. Healthy body fat percentage. Yeah, absolutely not. It obviously depends on male to female and your age, but a healthy body fat percentage looks to be somewhere between like 20 and 30. So the fact that he's recommending that you need to get down to 10% body fat, especially for a preteen female, which, sorry to get all TMI and stuff, but like, this is when you're supposed to be getting your menstrual cycle and you need body fat for that. You can actually lose your period. It's called amenorrhea because you're too underweight, or because you're exercising too severely, or because you don't have enough body fat. And you mentioned at the top of your story that you do have PCOS and thyroid issues, so this is a very layered situation for you personally. But as a general rule of thumb, the fact that an Herbalife rep is recommending that a preteen girl gets to under 10% body fat, that is dangerous. That is damaging. Every day felt like torture, and I hated taking the huge pills that tasted awful. Finally, towards the end of using Herbalife, I couldn't help myself anymore. I snuck a baked potato and I ate it in the middle of the night under my comforter, and unfortunately for me, my mom caught me. I was super embarrassed because I knew I wasn't allowed to eat anything other than a salad, but everyone else was able to eat everything else, and I felt wronged. I started crying and said, I just want to eat a potato, over and over again while hiding in my closet. My dad convinced my mom to just let me make my own choices over what I can eat, and I made it clear that I never wanted to have Herbalife again. Slowly over the next few years, they finished off the product that was left, and the nutritionist never came back. This experience made me hate dieting and exercising. As a result, I absolutely refused to do both and became even more unhealthy. I still resented people for treating me differently, and I ate even more out of spite. This led to my senior year of high school, unable to find a single dress for prom that would fit me because I refused to work for a healthier weight. When I started college, I met a man that I absolutely love and loves me for me. He helped me work through my body insecurity by just seeing me as worthy and beautiful. With the additional help of a therapist, this memory was unlocked, and I'm finally able to exercise and diet without feeling like I have given in to all the people who bullied me or couldn't fully love me while I was fat. I just started this journey and no one at the gym looks like me, but my boyfriend is always there with all of the love and encouragement, so I'm hopeful. Wow. I mean, as much as I hate to say it like this, I'm really not surprised that that incident that happened in your adolescence did have really negative ripple effects throughout the rest of your life. That makes sense. When someone comes into your life like an Herbalife rep like this, and he's telling you that you're severely unhealthy, he's getting your parents on board, he's selling you supplements, you're engaging in extremely restrictive eating habits and exercising a lot, that's a recipe for disaster. Of course you're still dealing with the effects of that years later. And I'm really relieved to see that you are getting the help of a therapist for that, and to work through those triggers and to work through those experiences from your childhood that really contributed to how you view exercise and diet these days. I am very happy that there is someone helping you work through that. And to think that this man who just showed up at your door one day, why was he there? What was his motive? Money. He wanted to sell you something. For all we know, he doesn't even remember this interaction. He has no idea the kind of impact that he's had on you, and that's disgusting. That is sick. And the point being is that MLM reps act recklessly every single day. It's not regulated. They don't think about it. They don't care. They don't consider what they're doing to you, because in his mind, his job is done. He sold your family a mass order of Herbalife products. He made off with a good paycheck, and now you are left to deal with the repercussions of that. And this happens all the time. Maybe not in this exact situation, but MLM reps say things to people or do things to people constantly that has the potential to have a lasting negative impact on those people, all in the name of money. It's horrendous, and I'm so sorry that this happened to you, but I really appreciate you taking the time to write this out so that I can read it, we can talk about it, and your story does contribute to the overall mission of educating on why these companies are harmful. So hopefully the rate at which these kinds of stories happen and these kinds of experiences occur will continue to diminish, and less people will have to go through that. Thank you so much for sharing your story. This one says, hey Hannah, I've been a longtime viewer of your channel since MLM Top Fails number 2 to be exact. That is a long time ago. That's awesome. Thank you for being here so long. I want to say that I posted that video in like September of 2021 or something crazy. That really makes my day. Thank you for telling me that. And I have finally decided to share my own experience with an MLM. I've been one of the lucky ones who have been pitched multiple MLMs but never joined. I did, however, end up working as an assistant for a LuLaRoe consultant who was very high up in the company. I do want to give a disclaimer beforehand since you've expressed worry about fabricated stories being sent in. I did post a very shortened version of my experience on the LuLaNo subreddit back in late 2019. I can provide screenshots of the post and any additional information regarding the validity of my story. I took the post down only a few weeks after because I had a lot of mutual friends with the LuLaHun and my Reddit account was under my real name. If you decide to share this story, please keep me anonymous. Back in early 2018, I was regularly attending a support group for my mental health struggles. Though there were tons of members in this support group, we were really tight-knit and for the most part everybody knew everybody. I decided to start attending an additional group at a location I had never been to before. Though this meeting took place in a separate location from the others, I knew most of the group members attending, except for one guy that we will call R. R approached me after the meeting and he told me he really liked my bubbly personality and the way I dressed, and asked me if I had a job. I had just left my position working at a solar panel installation company to go back to school full-time and was broke, so I told him no. He then proceeded to ask me me if I would be interested in taking a position as an assistant working for his wife's, quote, very successful clothing company. $30 an hour pay, flexible schedule, part-time work days, and I would receive free clothing. Obviously, to a broke college student, this sounded like a no-brainer. I expressed my interest and asked him if he could show me his wife's business website, to which he pulls up the le-vel company website. I hadn't found the anti-MLM community at this point, so to me, this looked like a legitimate business. And I believed him when he said that the website was all his wife, because why would someone lie about that? Lots of reasons to lie, actually. We exchanged contact information, and that following Monday, I showed up for my first day of work. I followed the GPS to the location, and to my surprise, it wasn't a retail building, it was their home. I was met by the very eager Lulahan, who was so excited for me to start. We'll call her E. E takes me inside her home and walks me to her boutique, which was this massive room in the front of their house that she had converted into her inventory room. She showed me some of the clothing, and my first thought was, wow, eyesore. But I figured that even if it wasn't my cup of tea, pun intended, she had leggings with teacups on them, that it was still a good paying job and I could make the best of it. I worked for 4 hours that day, packaging orders, filing paperwork, organizing clothes, and prepping orders to package the next day. That all seems fine, except for E refused to speak to me the whole time, whereas R was blabbing nonstop about how successful his wife's business was and that I was so lucky they picked me for this opportunity. Ew, come on. At the end of my shift, I was paid a whopping $30 in cash. You heard that right, not $30 per hour, $30 for the entire day. When I asked where the rest of my pay was, R told me that I would need to earn more pay as time went on. That should have been enough for me to dip and never come back, but I needed money and hoped this was just because it was my first day. I came back every day that week, and every day was filled with insanity. The next day, instead of packaging the orders I had prepped, E flung open the door, told me I was going to be babysitting her 2 kids that day, and left. She was gone for hours, and I was left alone with these 2 small children who were probably freaked out as to why a stranger they had never met was in their home. I was livid. By the end of the day, she paid me $60, which was still not nearly what I was promised, but whatever. It was groceries for that week. The days following that incident were filled with E teaching me how to take flat lay outfit photos for her Instagram. She set aside outfits on a rack with tags on each outfit, along with a list of the names of the products and the sizes, so that I could add text to the photos describing the items. I finished photographing around 30 outfits, which took me a few hours. And when I showed the final products to E, she lost it. She starts screaming about how I put the wrong names and sizes with the wrong outfits. When I told her that I followed her list, she had the audacity to tell me, quote, even if I messed up the list, you should still know the difference between a Carly and a Shirley. I have died, I think. Absolutely not. If you're not familiar, all of the LuLaRoe styles, the different pieces, they all have names, and assuming that you would know the difference between a Carly and a Shirley, not even knowing what the heck this brand is, the nerve of this woman. And then proceeded to pay me only $40 that day for around 6 hours of work. I was furious. I showed up the next day for what would, unbeknownst to me, be my last day of work. It was a Friday, and I was ready to just do whatever ridiculous tasks she had for me that day and leave for good. 5 minutes into my shift, she snapped at me for messing up the photos the day prior, and I was raging. She told me all she needed me to do that day was put together outfits and accessories for her to photograph, since I obviously, quote, wasn't capable of doing the photographing part of the job. So I said, challenge accepted. I put together the most hideous, mixed pattern outfits ever. I'm talking bomb pop 4th of July leggings with a leopard shirt and a lace vest over it hideous. And she loved it. No, really, she loved it. I put together around 20 outfits and she was over the moon happy with them. She said they were so funky and creative and exactly what customers would be looking for. I was waiting for the just kidding to follow, but it never did. This woman looked at Cheshire cat leggings under a pinstripe dress tied with 2 knots at the bottom and fawned. Oh Oh my god. I couldn't believe it. My attempt to be petty and spite her made her pay me $80 that day for maybe 2 hours of work. I'm still in shock writing it down now. After she paid me, I informed her I would never be coming back again, and right as I was quitting, R walked through the door. When she told him I was quitting, he started screaming at me. I left and blocked both of them on all social media. About a year later is when I found anti-MLM content and learned that LuLaRoe was actually not E's business. Why she lied about owning the company is beyond me. From what I've seen, E is still doing LuLaRoe and remains very high up in the company. Looking back on it, I probably shouldn't have been so petty and put together those hideous outfits to spite her, but the blatant disrespect from the both of them made it seem pretty justified in the moment. I'm also disgusted at how R brought me into this circus through a mental health support group. That's right! I honestly completely even forgot how you got here. I was like, I remember this guy kind of recruited you, but from a mental health support group. Oh no. Like, that just makes it so much worse. I know this story was long and not a traditional horror story since I never actually joined the MLM, but I hope it highlights some disgusting predatory behaviors and tactics the Huns and apparently their spouses use, even when they're not trying to recruit you. Keep doing what you're doing and give Cooper and Zeke some belly rubs from their biggest fan. Brilliant. I love this. I had so much fun reading this story. You're right, it's not traditional, it's not typical, and those are the best stories. These are like the diamonds in the rough that I live for with these videos, and it helps that there was kind of like no harm done, right? You didn't actually join, you didn't actually lose any money, you did waste your time a little bit, but it's one of those things that you can write down years after the fact and look back on it and have a good laugh. And isn't that the craziest thing, that at the time, for a while there, you genuinely thought like you were working for someone's startup clothing business. I can only imagine what that revelation was like down the road when you look back and you're like, wait a minute, this woman was an MLM hun, and her husband hunted me down at a mental health support group, and they tried to get away with paying me basically nothing. That is crazy. Thank you for sending this in. This is super entertaining to read. This story says, hello Hannah, I love your content and just recently got into anti-MLM content because of random YouTube recommendations. When learning more about MLMs and the companies that are an MLM, I realized I have quite the story. It may not be the most outrageous, but it was a lot for me. So for background, I was a competitive dancer from age 9 until I graduated high school. When I was a freshman in high school, I transferred to a brand new studio because I had outgrown my old one and I needed to go somewhere else to gain different techniques and experiences. In this new studio, one of the girls I closely danced with brought some interesting times. We will call her Kay. Her dad was our workout trainer as he ran a CrossFit gym, and dance needs a lot of strength training. Well, her mom, we'll call her H, was also very involved. She was with us backstage and in the dressing room on competition days. Here's where the MLM comes to play. H was a plexus seller. I have no clue what the actual title would be. They are called plexus ambassadors. Every MLM has their own little nickname for their reps. For plexus, you're an ambassador. But she pushed plexus material onto us dancers, particularly the Ease cream and pink drink. Now, we're all minors at this point, mind you, and she tends to ask the girls first and let them tell their parents, so they would just pay for it, not really knowing what it was, just thinking it was another dance thing. Wow, that is sneaky. I too grew up dancing. That was a part of my life until I was 22 years old. A huge part of my identity, and I totally understand all of these situations because competition studio dancing especially is very expensive. Parents of children who dance competitively are constantly shelling out money for God knows what. And so this is really sneaky that she's kind of encouraging the dancers to just go to their parents and be like, oh, another dance expense. And it's honestly not very surprising that that has the potential to work on a parent. They would probably be like, what is this? Another thing? Oh my gosh, okay, whatever. And this is pretty sneaky that the mom kind of knows not to go directly to the parents and be like, hey, you want to buy my MLM? But instead going to the kids and being like, hey, you need this to become a better dancer. Just go to your parents, tell them that it's another dance expense and they won't question it too much. Based on my personal lived experience, I can see how this would work. I can see how that mom knows exactly what she's doing and how she probably was able to sell a lot of product that way. She also made it seem like all of her daughter's success physically was due to her intake of various plexus products. I'm talking she would take pictures of us with the Ease cream sample packets even if we didn't use them personally. And you included a photo of this, so I'm going to put it up here. I'll blur both of your faces, but I'm assuming assuming that this is you and her daughter posing with this product so that she would have it to post. She posted pictures of Kay's point shoes with pink drinks. Many of her testimonials included Kay and her dance career. It even went so far that for a dance routine for recital, they were allowed to put whatever they wanted on the back of their t-shirts, and her mom put, quote, "powered by Plexus" on the back. Oh God. Oh, that's so cringy. I was 14 when she first got me to beg my mother to purchase a thing of Ease cream. She even tried to sell me on doing it subscription based, but luckily my mother did not fall for that. Good for her. Mind you, I had no clue what an MLM was, and neither did my mom really. My mom was a single mom paying for all of my dance stuff by herself. She really couldn't afford to buy this a ton, and sadly H knew that, but it didn't matter. So I tried the cream for my sore muscles because I was notorious for having aches and pains all the time. This will come back later. She called it a miracle cream and that it would fix all of my issues. Unknown to anyone at this point, my issues were actually an autoimmune disease that affects my joints severely. But my issues were only enhanced by the fact that when I was 15, I was walking to my bus stop and was hit by a car. He was on his phone trying to turn right on a red light and didn't know I was on the crosswalk. Oh my God. Luckily, he wasn't going terribly fast, but it tossed me a good distance and I landed on my back pretty hard. And that is why you do not text and drive. From then on, I had many complications dancing. When H found out that I was injured physically, the very first thing she mentioned is that I needed to put Ease cream on my sore muscles and drink the P96 drink as well. My mother was furious that she used my accident as a sales pitch, even without knowing what an MLM is. She stopped pitching to me because the owner of the studio asked her not to anymore because I was in a vulnerable position. Good for the studio owner too. She continued to use Kay as her pitch constantly. There wasn't a day at dance where we didn't hear about the fact that Kay drinks her pink drink and takes their probiotics, and that's why she's so healthy. The issue with that statement was that it was said in terms of me missing a ton of practice because I was unknowingly chronically ill and constantly at the doctor. Kay ended up growing up to be a major bully, and I have no doubt she learned it from her mother. Woo! Girl. I haven't spoken to either of them since 2020, and they haven't attempted to reach out to me either. I'm now working on an official diagnosis for my pain, getting treatment for my back, and figuring out why I've spent so long in pain. I've gotten married and have a 6-month-old son. I've realized now that I've come into contact with so many MLMs as a minor, it's kind of disturbing. I'm talking Color Street and the Jamberry nail strips, Scentsy and Monate, but this situation stands out to me the most. Thank you for reading this. I know it's not the most outrageous of a horror story, but I think the fact that this happened to me at 14 and 15 makes it so much worse. Keep spreading awareness. It does make it so much worse because you don't know better at the time. And this dance mom knows that you don't know better at the time. And she's taking advantage of that, especially because you had an undiagnosed chronic illness at the time too. And here she is saying that all of your problems can be fixed by Plexus products. It's such an inappropriate situation. And shame on her for trying to take advantage of minors at her daughter's dance studio to sell her pyramid scheme products. And it really does go to show that there is no boundary that can't be crossed, apparently. Nobody is off limits, nobody is safe from being pitched. And I love hearing that your mom kind of put her foot down, and so did the owner of that dance studio too, because you were a minor at the time. So I'm happy that there were a couple of adults in your corner to kind of prevent this situation from going any further. This story says, "Hi Hannah, I'd always thought I'd done a good job of avoiding MLMs, but listening to the horror stories you post made me realize that what I'd written off as an awkward, unfortunate Walmart encounter was actually an MLM hun. Considering it ended with me sprinting away holding 3 bags of potato chips, I figured it might be fun to share. This was a few years ago. I was an underpaid and underappreciated tech support worker trying to work up the courage to leave her terrible job and find a new, slightly less terrible job. I shuffled into Walmart after a particularly miserable shift in order to grab some snacks and a pick-me-up or two. Maybe it was my glazed over eyes or my defeated expression or just the general air of disappointment and desperation, but I attracted the attention of an older woman pushing a cart full of pricey-looking household items like a fancy blender, a rug, etc. I noticed her inhabiting the same aisle as me multiple times, but alarm bells didn't start to ring until we passed each other in the clothing department on the opposite side of the store, and she started waving to try to get my attention. Now, I was pretty much a zombie, and like many people, I have bad social anxiety on top of that. When a stranger waves at me, my automatic response response is to snap my head forward, to stare at the ground like a dejected dog and ignore them until they go away. This is usually enough to deter most people. However, Hunbot 3000 chose to ignore the obvious dismissal and walked closer, saying, "I just had to talk to you. Your glasses are so cute. Where did you get them?" While I don't remember my exact response, I estimate it was close to "Hurrah." This was also not a deterrent. Instead, the woman began to ask me the usual questions. Are you in school? Do you work? Do you like your job? Would you like to make more money? No, yes, no, yes. One-word responses were enough to keep her going. I could have been a cardboard cutout with a speaker taped to it, and I'm pretty sure she would have kept trying to engage. We were in a battle of wills. She was waiting for me to crack. I was waiting for her to leave. In the end, she won. She finally got an in with one last question. Would you like to be self-employed? It was my secret weak spot. I had dreamt of starting my own business for a while, although I knew I didn't have the skills or startup capital to make it work. My expression must have changed just enough for her to know that she'd gotten me. Once she had the hook, she started to reel. She told me all about how her financial advisor had gotten her started with her home business in direct sales, and how she'd started making double her previous salary in the first 5 years. This financial advisor was extremely busy, she said, but if she recommended me, she was sure that they would be willing to help me get set up with a business as well, and all I'd have to do was pay the startup cost and buy their stock. Now, even if this wasn't a huge red flag, I am obviously not the sort of person who can excel at sales. I couldn't sell water to a fish. When I tried to express this, I was informed that it was fine because her advisor had access to a ton of amazing products that basically sold themselves. The Hunbot was also bad at sales, but she hadn't let that stop her from taking up this amazing opportunity. It was obvious she wasn't going to listen to anything I had to say, so I meekly agreed to give her my phone number so she could set up the call. I just wanted out of this conversation. I didn't actually want to give her my number though, so I gave her my dad's instead. It was a technique I'd learned in my teens to get out of having to give random boys my number when they asked. You give them the number, they leave, they call later, they hang up when a man answers. However, this woman was actually a next level Hun, and she immediately called the provided number and asked if it was mine when my phone didn't ring. Busted. Oops, sorry, that's my old number. Here's my real number. She called, it rang. I immediately blocked the number and tried to keep her from seeing. Then she wanted my schedule. I was starting to sweat. Getting caught in my first lie made the woman even pushier. Are you free tomorrow? Friday? Is this time good? Anxiety was reaching critical mass. My thought processes were transitioning from path of least resistance to get out of there, man, the longer the second stretched on. It might seem like an overreaction, but I was already at my limit from work, and being harangued while I was trying to look at socks was kicking me into overdrive. Finally, I snapped. I grabbed my chip bags out of my cart, whirled around, and booked it in the opposite direction while the Hunbot was still rambling about how I needed to take this seriously, and she wouldn't make this offer to just anyone. Funny, because she's probably making that offer to literally everyone. I was entering the main aisle when I heard "Hey!" from behind me, which prompted me to toss the bags on the nearest shelf and sprint full tilt towards the entrance. In retrospect, I really hate to imagine what I must have looked like to the other customers. Just this completely deranged ball of anxiety zooming past, baffled Hun left in her wake. I was so embarrassed afterwards that I didn't go back to that Walmart for about 8 months. Anyway, thanks for reading this far. I may have dramatized things slightly, but I'm sad to say this is a true story. I heard a few where the Hun approached people while shopping, but none where they took this specific approach. So I'm curious if this was unique or not. Maybe the Huns are evolving. Wow, really entertaining story. And I can relate to you on the social anxiety level of like, if I'm in public and I'm trying to get something done, I do not want to make any kind of small talk with strangers. Like, I just can't do it. I will try my best to be polite as you did, but there is gonna be a moment where I snap, especially if someone is like backing you into a corner almost, asking for your personal information, asking for your contact information, being caught in that lie, like, oh, all of it. So uncomfortable. And I also also too would probably avoid that Walmart for a significant amount of time if that meant that I didn't have to encounter her again. Oh, so bad, so cringy. And that was wrong of her to put you in that uncomfortable situation, because we all know it's for her own financial gain. It's for her benefit. She's doing what she needs to do to make some money. But you know what? I always go back to this one thought of like, how sad is that? Who wants to live their life? Who wants it to be their job to go to a Walmart, hunting down strangers, backing them into a corner, forcing them to give you personal information? Also, you can get paid. Like, that's quite literally her job description. That is what she's trying to do to find new recruits. And that is sad. That is a sad life to live. But on the other hand, that's probably what that person has been taught and trained that they need to be doing. And they haven't yet realized that like, this isn't worth it. But hopefully she'll realize that. Hopefully she'll come to her senses and understand that the amount of money that her MLM was paying her, whatever MLM it is, whatever amount it is not worth it to be preying on strangers and making them uncomfortable so that you can make some money. No, thank you. But I'm hoping that today you do feel like you can return to the Walmart and that you will be safe. Who knows? But it does make for a pretty good story, so thank you for sending it in. This story says, "Hi Hannah, I don't feel like much is said about Scentsy, so I'm happy to make my story known. I joined Scentsy in January of 2020, and thanks to your videos and other anti-MLM content, I have just left. Congratulations, that is the best news. I had always known about these companies and always bought from them in order to support friends. I never really knew how bad they are until I became involved myself. I don't think I even understood about recruiting people before I joined. I just thought it would be fun to be a consultant and sell fun things. When I joined, I was invited to a Facebook group started by my upline director. The day I joined the group, there was a post announcing me and how happy they were that I joined. I really thought, what a nice group of people. I didn't know that I was being love bombed. I did good with sales in the first year, but didn't sponsor anyone right away. My upline started becoming really aggressive and insistent that I share the opportunity, and it is selfish to not ask people to join. They would hold trainings and Zoom meetings about sponsoring. You were just made to feel guilty if you didn't show up for these things. I did go a few times, but I always felt like it was just a waste of time. My director would constantly have these challenges regarding sponsoring. I started to feel really weird when she would insist that I contact 20 people in one day, stating, go for the no. I did eventually sponsor about 7 people. At that point, I was put into another Facebook group that was meant for leaders. It really felt the same as the other group, but even more aggressive. I started to get really tired of the consultant posts about how I'm working. These were basically shame posts of look at me and how good I'm doing compared to you. The entire time I was with Scentsy, I worked full-time as a nurse. It's weird, but a lot of Scentsy consultants are nurses or are in the medical field. I think medical people are in a vulnerable population, and that's why we get targeted. These consultants know how overworked we are and are selling the dream of staying home and working when you want to work. There were a ton of posts in the Facebook groups about how much PRV people were making and how big their paychecks were. I always felt like I had to compete and stay high in my PRV so that I wouldn't look like a failure. I ended up buying a lot of products that I actually didn't even want. My final push to get out came when the top of my upline or pyramid was basically yelling at everyone that they were not working hard enough. I know now that she needs everyone to work hard so that she can make a paycheck. That's right. They are constantly talking about staying up until 3 a.m. and if you're not doing that, I guess you just don't care about your business. I guess my point is that Scentsy seemed like a harmless company, but it's the exact same MLM as all the rest of them. I'm very anti-MLM now and will probably never purchase anything from MLM companies again. Thanks for what you do to expose these companies. I would probably have lost a lot more money and friends if you didn't do what you do. And thank you for telling me that. I'm so glad that these videos have played any kind of role in informing you, educating you, giving you a little bit more power back in this situation and understanding what really did go on. And the thing I really want to point out about your story is that, you know what? We could take out the name Scentsy and we could plug in the name of any other MLM, and I can nearly guarantee you that there are people from that company that have this same experience. And there's such this big narrative that like my MLM is better or mine is different. And I love that you flat out just said, I thought this seemed like a harmless company, but you know what? It's the exact same as all the rest of them. And I agree with that. Different names of the company, different products, different names for the ranks. But underneath all of that surface level stuff, it's still the same business model. There are still the same motives and incentives behind things. And they require people to act in the same way, regardless of the company. And I think that's what's really telling about your story, is that this kind of experience is not limited to Scentsy. I'm sure there are a lot of of other people out there from a variety of different companies that could relate to this story in one way or another. And with that, my friends, that's all the stories that I have for you for this MLM Horror Stories video. Huge thank you again to everyone who sent in their stories. And if you have your own that you would like to send to me, the instructions for how to do that are down below. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you, and I'll see you in my next one real soon.